But yeah, I'm known around Ballard for raising hell in the middle of the night. If you hear someone that's been hollering and cussing all night long at people, you know it's probably me. And the next day there's probably gonna be someone from like KJOK or something, you know, one of the radio stations or something, come down and interview me because I'm known, you know, in this community for doing stuff like that. And they're like, what was Howard hollering and cussing and raising hell for last night? You know, well, you know, some people that didn't know me, they said, well, he, you know, he was drunk or high or something, you know, like that. But then someone that knows me, they like, you know, Howard don't raise hell unless it's for someone else. Okay. I don't raise hell for nothing. Nobody's doing nothing to me. You know, people do me wrong, and I take it and I go on. But if you hear me out here hollering and cussing at people, well, there's probably a military vet or senior citizen or someone like that I'm trying to get some help for in the community. And they've, you know, everybody has turned their back on some of these people. Like when COVID first started, there was a guy that had slept here in the park. He had been out here for 20 years. And he was an old guy. And I became friends with him just by giving him tobacco, rolling tobacco. And, you know, I bought the big bags, and so I'd give him a little bit of tobacco. And I kind of made friends with him. And then I started the kitchen and the donation tent. And when I started doing that, then like people just filled my donation tent with brand new tents, new sleeping bags, food. I mean, I was cooking for everybody here. Yeah. You know, we had it going on. Yeah. And so it snowed when it snowed. And when it snowed, just so happens, I got a lot of the donors that was donating to me, I got their phone number. And I don't know why in the world I did it or what, but just God was using that minute, you know. And I just so happens I got their phone number, and in the spur of the moment, just so happens someone needed something, you know, after like at 9 o'clock at night when all the donors was gone. I could call my donors at 11 o'clock at night, at 2 o'clock in the morning. Hey, I got 3 people down here that need tent and sleeping bags. Bam! I mean, they come running. 1 hour later, someone come running up to the park with you know, tents and donuts and stuff. And so when it snowed, I was talking with him and working with him, and I was working with some of my donors, and I said, look, I got a couple seniors here that are like old people, like, and you know, they like they'll wet their clothes in the bed and stuff like that. And I was like, is there anything that y'all can do for this person, you know? And one of them was him. Just so happens they had just started the tiny, that's when the tiny homes first started coming out. They got him into one of them. And this dude, when he went into tiny homes, he come to it. First they put him in a motel for like a week. They brought him after they went and got him a shave and cleaned him up and everything and cut his hair and all and brought him back down. And he was crying. He was sitting over there crying. He says, Howard, he says, you ain't gonna believe it. He said, Howard, you are my friend. He said, I wanna call you my friend. He said, you're the only friend I've ever had in my whole life. I said, what? He said, you are my best friend. He said, you ain't gonna believe this. He said, I've been out here 20 years on the street. He said, not one single person has asked me about getting into housing. Not one single person has tried to help me or has tried to be my friend. He says, and now he's right today, and this has been since COVID, 2019, he's still in that tiny home. And like, he was a Ballard, like, known, you know, like everybody knew him for around here, and he was a real old, quiet guy. You didn't hardly hear anything out of him. And right to this day, if he hasn't passed, and I haven't heard anything about it, but if he has, you know, I don't know anything about it. But to this day, I guess he's still.
What's his first name?
Oscar.
Oscar.
And believe it or not, they took a picture of me over there in the corner with the donation tent. And they had a big story going about him. I didn't know it, but one of my donors that was coming through here and just bringing a meal that she had cooked at home, her and some of her kids would come down here and serve it. Her kids would come down here and serve it. I mean, and like, they was calling this park the most dangerous park in Seattle at that time. And they were coming in here and like, if you bring something in here, you didn't have to worry. Everybody in this park would tear up everybody if you bothered anybody.
Yeah.
Didn't know it, but they were big time military. They posted this on Instagram, and their husband in Iraq or Iran, I don't know which one, had got a hold to it, you know, on their, and posted it, and like 7 different countries. It went to 7 different countries, 40,000 people. They come back the next day, they were like, Howard, you famous. And I'm like, what do you mean? And they're like, on Instagram, man, you got 40,000 views.
Gotcha.
And I was like, what do you mean? I didn't even have Instagram. I had Facebook. And they were like, yeah, so we went over and they tied my device up, you know, we downloaded the Instagram, put it on my device, and they made me an Instagram site, set it up, and then they tagged me, you know, with all their stuff to it, and bam, there it was, 40,000 people in 7 different countries. And I was like, wow.
Awesome.
You know.
Well, hey, we're rolling here. Are you okay if we have a little privacy? We're gonna start. Oh yeah. Remind me your name again. Danielle, that's right.
And
Howard, I love that stories. I love it.
but,
I start at people's beginnings. Tell me about yourself. Where were you born and raised?
So I was born and raised in Talladega. I was born in Talladega, Alabama, which is race car country. You know, we know.
That's right.
And my mother, she moved right shortly after I was born, I guess. My mother and father got a divorce, and so my dad, he moved back to Alabama, South Alabama, and my mother, she stayed in Georgia. That's where a lot of her sisters was living at the time, was in Atlanta, right outside of Atlanta. And so I kind of went back and forth until Mother died. Mom died when I was 13.
Wow.
And so back and forth until then, and then after that, then I kind of I lost sight of my mother's side. You know, I was with my father all the time, and after my last bid, and I did 3 bids in prison, and my last bid, it was not prison, it was a college for men, because that's what I used it for. I did nothing but educate myself. I got my high school diploma. I got my minister's license. I got one of the strictest drug treatment, anger management, personal development, reality therapy class. It was designed by President Clinton, and I took it, and I got all 3 of the classes, and the governor of the state of Alabama, actually himself, gave me a parole date. I met this pen pal girl there in the community through a newspaper ad, and she started pen paling me, and her and her husband wanted to come join me and wanted to come see me in prison. So I put them on my list. They come and see me. They were sending me stuff, and we was writing back and forth. And after I got all 3 of my certificates, I sent them to her, and I sent her the governor's address. I said, write the governor for me and see if you can't get me a parole date, because they was getting ready to do a lot of mass releasing from Alabama, non-violent offenders. And so she wrote him, and she waited, 3 or 4 days and no answer, and she wrote me, she said, I haven't heard anything back yet. I said, well, those kind of people, you may have to write quite a bit, quite often. I says, it's something that, And so she went to writing the governor every single day a letter. For 30 days straight, she wrote him a letter every single day. And in the last letter, when she wasn't talking about me, she was talking about the governor not answering her 29 letters, and her and her husband being registered voters in the state. And so 3 days later, I get a parole date.
It worked.
which is granted by the governor.
Yeah.
And so I get out, and I did my parole.
How old were you at this time?
This was I got out in 2004. December the 18th, 2004. December 18th this year, 2024, made 20 years for me being out of prison. The 1%, they say 1% of the people that go to prison stay out for 20 years. 85% return to prison within the first year. 85% return to prison within the first year.
Congratulations.
And so I made it. Yeah, December was 20 years for me.
Yeah, right on.
And so now I'm working on 21, and I'm about to be 51 this year.
Yeah.
I'll be 51 in August.
Gotcha.
But after that, I had a welding business, and things just it went up and then it went down. And I was like, you know what? I'm leaving Alabama. I said, because of not, you know, when I get in a situation like this, I always find myself going back to prison. Just do it, you know, little petty stuff. I said, I'm not going to do it. I said, I'm going to leave Alabama. And I met a guy out down south of Mobile. To leave Alabama, you got to go to Mobile where all the interstates join. And so I went to Mobile, and I met this guy. He was a homeless guy, and he was a train rider, and he was coming to Seattle. And he was a freight train rider. And I'm sitting there with I'm talking about a nice 95 four-wheel drive, double limo, tinted windows, jacked up, all chrome, everything. I mean, toolbox, everything. It was set up for my welding business, you know. And it was real nice. And I'm sitting there, but it's got 6-year plates on it, and it's registered to the business that I used to work for. But I got suspended driver's license. So I'm just gonna leave the truck. I'm like, you know what? I'm ready. I'm ready to go. Let's go. I was like, well, he was talking about coming to Seattle. I was like, well, let me go get my stuff. Well, when he described Seattle for me, I asked him, I said, where's Seattle at? He says, as far away from here as you can go without getting on a boat or a plane.
You're on board with that.
And so I was like, well, let me go get my stuff. And he says, what? I said, in my truck. He says, truck? I pointed to it right across the little creek there. He said, that's your truck? I said, yeah. He says, man, you drive it and I'll keep it full of gas. Well, I didn't have no money. It was sitting at the gas station because it needed gas. I said, bet. He said, take me over here to the airport, drop me off. He said, sit right there about 30 minutes. He says, you sit there and watch me if you want, but I advise you get asleep because you're going to be driving. So I sat there for a little bit, and he got out with a little sign and went hustling, you know, panhandling.
Oh, he got some cash.
And he come up with about a little over $100. It was enough to fill up both tanks and get a couple packs of cigarettes and a bag of cheeseburgers from McDonald's. And so we went and we did that. And when we pulled out of McDonald's, he told me, he says, every exit sign or off ramp, you know, where you exit, he said, if you see a Walmart, he says, pull in. I says, all right. He said, only Walmart. So we did that the whole way, all the way from south. We pull in Walmart. I take a nap and go to sleep.
You panhandle.
He'd get out there with a little sign that says, please hungry. And it was that long, piece of cardboard, that long, that he folded in half, because in Alabama you go to jail for 90 days for doing that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So he'd hold it in his hand like that, and then he'd hit a little sign like that. Man, people was just rolling out of the way, just giving us money. And when we got to Montana, that was it. They were angels. When I pulled over on the side of the interstate, there was a sign that said Continental Divine that went over the interstate right there in Montana. When I pulled off and left him on the side of the interstate right there, when I pulled back up on the interstate, I looked, there was no one there. I looked, no one there. They just disappeared. Angels. And I made it, you know, at that point in time, I had one guy that was sitting on the back. We made one more stop in the Spokane. He got us, this little young kid, about 17 or 18 years old. He had mom and dad's credit card, filled up the truck, that brought us with gas on into Seattle, and I've been here ever since. And that's been, I don't know, about 17 years now.
Is it 2004? Is that
and
around there?
and I come and go. You know, I go back home.
Well, when you got to Seattle, what was the plan? What'd you do?
So when I got here, I didn't know anybody. I didn't know anything about Seattle.
And you had your truck with you?
I had my truck. So I roll up past the UGM, the Union Gospel Mission. Well, at first I come through town. I turn around by the Space Needle, and I go back down through. And when I head down, I'm headed down, what is that, 2nd Avenue, I think, it goes by UGM. When I passed by, all the homeless people were standing out there. So I just pulled over. And a dude come walking up to the truck and asked me for a cigarette. So I give him I had some roll-ups, so I give him a cigarette, and we sitting there talking. I said, man, where can I find work in this town? He said, man, right up on the hill here. He says, there's a day labor place. He says, if you go up there, they'll hire you right away. He told me where. I took off. And I pulled up in Seattle at 8 o'clock. At 9 o'clock, the very same morning, I was on the roof working. I went up there and I told the dude, I said, I want to fill out an application. He says, okay. He says, do you got ways of transportation? I said, I have a truck out here. He says, really? He says, check this out. He says, I need you on the roof working right now. He said, let me get you on the roof working. He says, I'm gonna give you the ticket. He give me like $5 for lunch. He says, and we'll do your application this evening when you get in from work. And so I went down, I worked, and the crew, they loved me. I stayed with them for like 2 weeks on that job. We was doing a big warehouse down there. And so I had work every day. And then I went from that one over to the command center and started working with them at the stadium at night. So I had 2 jobs. So I was working both of them. You know, I was tired.
And sleeping where?
And sleeping in my truck. Yeah. Wherever I could pull over at, you know, and I'd lay down and I'd sleep. And early that morning, I then got to realizing these people riding around writing tickets now. You know, early that morning, I'd get up and go over to my day labor place, park my truck right there, get my work, and then I take my truck, you know, to the job with me wherever. And it just went from one thing to the next. And believe it or not, I've actually started 2 businesses here in Washington. One legal, licensed and everything in LLC here in Washington. The Lazy Dog, Crazy Dog here in Ballard was my job. I opened that job and I knew nothing about.
What was the business?
The Lazy Dog, Crazy Dog.
But what was the
It's a doggy daycare.
Okay, there you go.
So when they moved into the building, it was nothing but a big warehouse, and so they had to lay down tongue and groove, 1-inch plywood.
Oh, so you did all that stuff.
It had to be sealed. It had to be. I mean, there was a lot of work. The whole building had to be painted. A lot of stuff had to be done. I knew nothing whatsoever about rules and regulations and this and that and the other. Codes and all that. When I got there, I supervised the job. I had 7 men working for me. When I got done with the job and the inspectors went in to inspect it, I passed 100. He looked at like 3 things. He's got a list. He goes to he has 3 things that if you pass these 3 things, everything else he knows you got because most people miss this.
Yeah, right.
He went to them top 3 things and everything was perfect. He said, there was a big write-up about it. He said, whoever done this job has more experience than I do and more knowledge than I do.
And you didn't know what you're doing.
And he was there, and I was just doing the work.
Yeah, doing it how you know how to do it.
I was just doing it.
Well, how long did you do this construction thing for?
I did from almost start to finish. I finished that job, and then I went to Fred Meyer over in Lake City. Someone had set a teddy bear on fire and set it back on the shelf, and so it smoked out like the whole 2nd level of Fred Meyer, and so like all of that had to be demoed. They bid that job out. Pacific Rim was the fire and water restoration company that did it, they bidded the job out, and they said the demo was gonna last 6 months. I took 2 drug addicts off the street of Seattle, and a little teeny tiny Seattle arts teacher from Seattle Pacific University, little bitty girl, real little bitty. I mean, she didn't weigh 100 pounds soaking wet. I took them 3 at night after my welding job. I used to work for a parade float company that does a lot of the parade floats in the area. I'd work for them during the day, and then I'd go over there and 6 hours a night for 6 nights. I did the demo. They was cleaning up as I was tearing stuff loose. And when I got done with everything, my demo, I was like the top demo man here in Washington. Like, when I got done with it, it was ready to go back. You didn't have to do anything. Whoever come to do the remodel, it was ready to go back, because a lot of times I would get the remodel, and so it would make my remodel a lot faster.
As well as the demo.
As the demo.
Yeah.
Yep. And I did that and then next thing you know, I'm doing jobs for Beacon Plumbing, and that was owned by the Seahawks at the time.
Yeah.
I don't know who owns it now. It's been years since I did any, like, since 2019.
Oh, gotcha.
Since I did any work, but
well, eventually the work stopped, or COVID, or what?
Well,
what
yeah, COVID hit, and man, I done went and bought a brand new truck. I got my driver's license back. I had not had driver's license in 27 years.
And so you were living in your truck at this whole time?
No. Well, I mean, over the years, you know, a lot of things changed, and I moved from one spot. I come back. I went to Virginia. I'm a welder as well, and so I got a company in Baton Rouge that contracts me out, and I go to Virginia and work for them in Virginia, Pennsylvania. I'll go and I work Virginia, Pennsylvania, and some other little job around, whether it's Indiana or Kentucky or wherever. Usually they'll try to get me on three different yards, and it'll be 3 different states that I'll go, and I'll hit one and then go to the other and hit this one. And by the time I'm done with this one's got the budget back. They only get a certain budget every month, you know, and so, but they get it every month. And as soon as the budget comes in, then I come back in, and so I'll come in a week and a half and do their budget. And as soon as their budget's done, then I shoot over to the next, you know, and it may be, you know, a couple 100 miles, but I mean, when you're going for $5,000 or $10,000, it makes a difference, you know.
Yeah.
And I'm a contractor, I'm not an employee.
Right.
So that made the difference. And so I'd hit 3 and just work them. And then usually I'll go and stay about 9 months. And I miss Seattle. I had to come back. I had to come back. When I first come up here, I stayed up here for 3 years. And then I went home, and I was getting ready to go home, and me and one of the guys that I met down at a homeless shelter that used to be on 3rd Avenue. They have a day center where you wash your clothes and shower and all that. And one of the counselors there, I was getting ready to go home, and he was like, "Okay, we'll see you in about 6 months." And I was like, "See you in about 6 months?" I was like, "Man, I'm not even from here. I got no family here. I don't know anyone here other than the few people that I've met." I was like, "What makes you say see you in 6 months?" He says, "Man, everybody that comes to Seattle always comes back." And I said, "Okay, whatever." I didn't believe it, but I got home. Within 6 months of being at home, I was missing this place.
You're homesick.
I was homesick. I was. And so, it has, from that day to this one, man, I leave and I get home and I'm like, man, I'm missing home. Yeah. You know, Seattle has become home to me.
Good.
I got my driver's license out of 27 years. Yeah. I got my first truck when, you know, I started a handyman business, and I got my first truck bought at a car lot with, you know, a $40,000 truck. and then next thing you know, I got 7 DeWalt toolboxes full of brand new. I had every DeWalt tool that there was that was made.
Well, I'm so curious, because a little bit before I said, "Are you unhoused?" and you said yes.
Yes.
So what happened?
So COVID hit, and I was making a lot, But as I was making it, I was putting it back into my business. I was building my business up.
Sure.
I was buying, like I said, I had 7 DeWalt toolboxes. The snappable, the snap, the interlock that locked all together, all packed full of DeWalt tools. I had every DeWalt tool that there was that was battery powered, 20 volt. I had the chainsaw, I had the radio, I had the vacuum cleaner, I had it all. And so I was putting my money back into my business, and then COVID hit. And I got my last check, it was like $4,000. And the house what I would do, I would move into a house that needed remodeled. I'd remodel it, I'd stay in the house for like a year while I was remodeling, and I got my rent free,
right.
Plus I got an hourly price for what I did to the house, and I wouldn't do anything to the house until after my day job. You know, I had a day job that I worked every day, 8 or 10 or 12 hours, and then I'd come home and I put so many hours on the house, you know, and I stayed there for a year. I just finished the home. The business was getting ready to move back into it. COVID hit, and the business was actually, I think that's when Amazon maybe or one of these big businesses come in and started buying up a lot of stuff to move it. And they was gonna buy the building that they had their office building in, and they was gonna buy the whole building.
Right.
And so they was gonna have to move out, or they thought. And so they told me, they were like, Howard, look, you know, we're gonna have to get you, we hate to do it, but we're gonna have to ask you to find, you know, somewhere else right now to live, because we're fixing to have to move all of our business out, and I'm gonna need the house. And so I went and got a motel, and then COVID hit. And I was like, oh, and so I'm here with all of my stuff from my house. I done went and bought everything for the house. I mean, I went from homeless to a 5-bedroom home now. And so I had everything that I bought, and I was like, I didn't have a backup plan. Now nobody's working. I'm in a motel and I got COVID. The guy that owned the Lazy Dog, Crazy Dog, him and his wife went through China while the COVID virus was over there.
Right.
And they come back through. And so he caught it either there or coming back through and didn't even know it. And when he come back, his and I reaction, and I had it. I thought it was the cold. I went up to do some work up in Granite Falls for another one of my customers, and he looks at me and he's like, Howard, are you sick? And it was like everything I could do to get out of the bed to come over to his house, just, you know. But he needed me, and so I was gonna try to muscle up the energy just to get done. And I had been there like 30 or 40 minutes, and I was like, you know what? And he was like, Howard, he says, and he went, and we were sitting at the bar, and he's on the other side of the bar, and he went to stick his hand up and his hand was like right there, and he could feel the fever. He was like, Howard, he's like, I can feel your heat from right here, man. He's like, you need to go, you know, and you need to go get a motel room and take some this and that. I went and I got me a bottle of Alka-Seltzer Plus cold and flu. I got a bottle of NyQuil cold and flu, a bottle of Tylenol, and a big thing of chicken noodle soup from the groceries, from the QFC, like, you know. And I went to the motel room. And on my way to the motel room, I turned it up. You know, I drank some of the NyQuil. I got to the motel, I took some of the Alka-Seltzer Plus, I doubled up, took some of the Tylenol, and I laid down. And I woke up sometime in the middle of the night, and I was like, I'm gonna go outside and smoke. I went outside and I couldn't smoke nothing because I was coughing. And it was like freezing. And I'm like, it's not really that cold. I mean, I know it's not really, but I was like freezing. And that was telling me I had a real high fever. So I dosed up again. I laid down. The next time I woke up, I was drunk from the NyQuil. because I took the bottle of NyQuil was 3 doses for me. And on the last dose, I drank the rest. I took some more of the cold and flu Alka-Seltzer Plus. And when I woke up, I went to McDonald's. I got a McChicken and a small order of fries. And when I ate that McChicken, it was just like it turned the COVID virus off. I mean, all my symptoms went away. Like,
Are you saying a McChicken cured your
COVID?
COVID?
A McChicken and a small fry cured COVID.
Oh, and a small fry.
And a small fry cured COVID. And it did. I mean, it turned it off. And I was like, okay, so I had a cold. I didn't even know what the coronavirus, I heard of it, on the news, but I was working all the time. And so I wasn't really paying attention to what, this and that, what the news was saying. I thought it was phony, it was fake. I even made a bunch of replies about it. Afterwards, I'm back at home, and I left from here, I left from there. I went over to the storage unit. I packed up everything that I had in the storage, put it on the truck, and I pointed that truck toward Alabama right then. And when I went through Montana, I was going out of Montana, and they was talking about they were putting up barriers to stop people from coming in. There was a sign on the side of the road, a lighted sign,
Turn around.
Yeah, turn around. And I was going out the other side. I set cruise control on 106 on that Dodge, and I went to Alabama. And when I got home, I went over to one of my ex's house, and I was over there. And I come in from work like on the 3rd or 4th day, and she's got the news on, and they talking about this coronavirus has entered into Washington State, and I'm back in Alabama, and I got a bright red Dodge 4-door with Howard Powered wrote across the front of the windshield, and Howard the handyman wrote across the back with my phone number, and there's a 206. Everybody knows. And so that brings attention to, and then I'm in Alabama and they don't have front license plates. And here I am with this bright red new Dodge truck in community, back at home in them small countries. Like, who's that with that red truck?
Yeah, It stood out.
And it stood out, it did. And then that license plate, Washington State. And I'm sitting there watching the news, and they're describing the coronavirus symptoms, and they go to talking, and I'm like, I had that. I was like, wow, you just telling me I had the coronavirus? I was like, and the coronavirus was easier to get rid of than one of my colds. Like when I catch a cold, like it's usually like sometimes a month of taking. I mean, I'm talking about 2 weeks of non-stop in the bed.
Yeah.
Like when I get a cold, I get the walking pneumonia, and so but when I caught the coronavirus, like 4 days, and it was gone, like out the door, and I was like, wow. I was like, this stuff ain't nothing, and I made some remarks on my Facebook, and like back home, like I got all these people on my Facebook, and I made a comment about that I had it, and they wasn't taking it as a joke. Like, boy, you just got you a police escort out of this state. Get your stuff, put it on that truck, and you need to stop right now and get gas, because once you get on that road, you're gonna have a state trooper right here and a county behind you, and you're going to the end of the state line, and don't be back in here. Yeah, they give me a police escort.
They really did?
Out of the state of Mississippi, they sure did.
Wow.
I mean, and I was just making a joke about it. I didn't know.
They didn't think it was funny.
Oh no, they didn't think. And then like 2 days later, someone comes up with coronavirus right there around where I was at. Oh, and it was like, yeah, boy, you gotta go. You gotta go now.
Well, so did that take your business down? And
that took everything.
Everything down.
When I come back to Seattle, I had all my tools. I was here in the park, I was like, you got 7 toolboxes. I'm talking about big DeWalt toolboxes packed full of brand new DeWalt tools. Like many of them had not even ever been, used or anything. And here I am. I was like, you know what? I was like, I don't know what to do, but by now, it's done been 3 months and I ain't paid a truck payment. So now they trying to get my truck. And I can't leave this truck. If I leave this truck to go to the restroom right here, there's someone right across the street waiting to snag it.
Repo man.
They were waiting to snag it. They were waiting for me to get out of the truck and they were gonna get it. And I was like, you know what? I paid 6 months in payments on this truck. Every one of my payments was a week early, at least. I was like, I'm not, they telling me I can't go to work. It's not that I don't want to go to work. I was like, as soon as they free it up, I'm gonna be back at work and I'll catch, 2 months of payments up, even though they were $1,000. I was like, and I was laying down in the truck and a girl come over to the truck. She thought I was gone and evidently she had the key and she was fixing to snag it. She didn't see nobody in it. She was fixing to get it and she come over to the door and when she grabbed the door, it woke me. And I sat up and looked at her, and boy, she took off. It scared her. I sat up and she took off. And that let me know that they were trying to steal my truck. And so I was like, I was like, you know what? They're going to have to chase me back out of Alabama again because I'm fixing to go back home. But I only had like $300 and something.
But you don't have the truck anymore?
No.
Did they get it or what?
Yeah, they
got it.
They were on me. Like, they wanted this truck. I mean, it's $40,000. And so I had $350 from a job that I did under the radar, and I had all these tools. I was like, you know what? Pawn shop. I'm fixing to get my truck. I can get more tools as long as I got the truck. I was like, I'm going home. I'm gonna go back home. COVID should be over with by now, or getting close to be. So I went to the pawn shop. I pawned $20,000 worth of brand new DeWalt tools. Got like $300 and something. And I'd set GPS on my phone for like when I leave from here to Seattle. And then when I leave Seattle to Eastern Washington. And from Eastern Washington, a little bit further. And they were following me. They were following me to get that truck. When I got to Gillette, Wyoming, I pulled over, and when I pulled over to get gas, they took something off my battery that connected some other stuff, and when they took it off, I couldn't connect everything. And I mean, at the gas, they did it at the gas station. They did it slick too.
So they got you.
Real slick, and I couldn't, and so I had to walk off. I had $168. And nobody in the town would sell me that part.
So you just left the truck and walked away?
I got on Greyhound.
Wow.
I got on Greyhound and left there. Yeah, they were trying to get me. They were trying to run me away from the truck, and so that's what they done. And so I left the truck. I left it a little banged up, but I mean.
Yeah. Well, Howard, let's talk about your current situation. Where'd you stay last night?
So I've been staying down toward Golden Gardens, down at the beach, and I got a tent, and I stay in, and it, I go from here, I go up to Marysville, I come back, back and forth.
You still have these skills.
I do, but I've had a heart attack. Like 5 years ago, I guess, and 5 or 6 years ago, and like, I'm strong. My bones is like, because of all the broken bones that I had in a motorcycle accident, that's kind of weak. And then since it's heart attack, I used to have a lot of energy, but since it's heart attack, like my energy level like went way down. And then I lost my dad. And once I lost my dad, depression kicked in, and it was like you know what? Like, I worked and worked. I mean, I worked 3 jobs to get everything and get off the street, to get, you know, all the stuff that it took to live in home, beds, couch, you know, everything to cook and all that. And I put a year's worth of working 3 jobs, 4 jobs, every single dime into that. And then when I left, I lost it all. Like, I mean, a brand new leather reclining love seat and couch matching. You know, everything that I had was like all matching, and like, I mean, and then I lost it all. And I was like, you know, I mean, and I worked for years like homeless. Like, and I got up and went to work every day. And people that I was working for, they didn't know that I was homeless. You know, they could never tell. But I kept myself, you know, there's areas to take a shower and clean up and do your laundry and stuff like that. And so, but after I lost my, you know, after my dad, I was like, you know, depression, I mean, it was like.
How are you coping with depression? And
you know, so I that's the one reason I went to Marysville. I figured I would go up that. I have this program that the state pays me. I get a check every month, and I get EBT with you know, insurance and all. But I have this program that would pay for my housing if I had, you know, a spot. And so I was like, you know, there's a lot of places like that up in the country, like, you know, toward Marysville. So sure enough, I got set up to go up there and was gonna get kind of situated in up there. And I'll be John Brown. I go up there and get things started. The counselor that I'm gonna get things worked with, she quits her job and goes to work for somewhere else. And so it was a lot of, it's hard to get counseling up there. And that's one condition of my thing, is to get counseling. So now I got it all switched back. For the last year, they've been telling me they're 6 months behind. They're 6 months behind, you know, on their stuff. And so I couldn't get enough counseling. And so now I got it switched back just the first of this month. I got it switched back to King County. And so I'm gonna be getting a counselor through them, and hopefully maybe someone that can lead me through to help me get housing. I've always pushed for other people, and I've never even mentioned my own name. You know, and I've got many people off the street and like housing, and like I have not asked, not one single time have I asked for myself. And you know, it's 51. I mean, I've been had a heart attack. You know,
feeling
my body's, and I'm feeling it like, I'm feeling it bad. And I'm like, you know, it's time for me to stick up for me. It's time for me to ask something for me. And then, you know, once I get into housing, then I can do more for other people if I'm in housing.
That's right.
You know,
totally.
And so that's where I'm going to be moving into, hopefully in the next little while. If not, then it is summertime, and there's 2 times of the year that I like to go home. One time is during the summertime because of fishing, and one time during the wintertime, and that's because of hunting. And then I go home on my dad's birthday, and that's, you know, in March. And so I would like to go home and spend about a month of camping, like the style of camping that we do here. Like, we used to pay to do that back home. Like, you know, it cost us like $500 on the weekend to go camping, you know, and spend the weekend on the river, buying food for, you know, the family and everybody, gas for the boat and this and that. But I would like to do that, maybe go back home. And I got a piece of property back home that my grandmother left, you know, to her siblings, and then when Dad left, I got a part of it, and one of my cousins is wanting like my share of it, and so she's been wanting me to come home for quite a few months now, and so I may go back home and sell the property, go to the river and camp out for a week or so, a couple of weeks, and just get some good river time in, fishing on that river, and It's the Tennessee Tom Bigby River. It's the river that Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn went up and fish on that river, and then probably come back. Who knows?
Well, one last question before we wrap up. Howard, is there anything you'd want the people of Seattle to know?
You know, like I said, I don't ask things for me. I started the I Stand movement back in 2019. It's called I Stand. I stand for senior citizens, for military vets was first on my list. I said I stand for military vets. I stand for senior citizens. I stand with people with physical and mental disabilities. And then I said, if you can't stand, I'll stand for you, you know. And so, you know, my thing is to getting resources out to the military vets first, to senior citizens, to some of these older people. Yeah, you can put a drug addict in a house. He's not gonna stay there. He don't feel comfortable there. Put these seniors there. You know, it would possibly take a year or two off of their life with them being out here on the street like that. But when you put them in, you may add a year or two to their life. And I mean, if they've worked all their life, you know, give them a break. If they're 70, 80 years old, it's time to be inside, you know, somewhere and not just pushing for someone, you know, whatever. And so that's, you know, and they have been doing a lot since the tiny homes. I've seen a lot of, you know, a lot of people that's on the street now want to be there. And if you want to be there, then that's fine. But if you've been a military vet, you've served in the military, you've served in war or whatever, you deserve a place. You shouldn't be asking for a place. You should be demanding a place. You know, if you went and fought in Vietnam, that's some of the vets that I've been pushing for is some of the Vietnam vets. You know, I think that you should be able to demand a place because you've served your time and you've done, you know. And so, but other than that, no, you know, Seattle it's gotten better, but you know, a lot of from COVID-19, Black Lives Matter, and everything that has taken place since, a lot of businesses has left, and so there's not really a whole bunch that we're gonna, you know, be able to do from that. But from what's here, I mean, it's gotten better. I mean, it's gotten worse, but it's gotten better.
You're here. You're back in Seattle.
I am.
So, Howard, good to hear your voice, man.
Yeah.
Thanks. I appreciate your time. All right, man. Let me get that little microphone. I got to take a couple photos of you too.
Okay, yeah.